Have you ever wondered why the man who once seemed so powerful, so untouchable in his pride, begins to unravel in silent torment when he meets a woman he cannot bend to his will? Why does his mind circle back, again and again, to the figure of the one who slipped from his grasp? It is because, in that woman, he confronts something far greater than desire. He confronts his own unconscious, the hidden truth of his soul mirrored back in a form he cannot possess. To understand this, one must enter the realm Carl Jung mapped with such precision, the world of shadow, projection, and archetypal power. The man who obsesses over the untamed woman is not longing merely for her body or her presence. He is struggling against the abyss she represents, the limit of his control, the exposure of his fragility. She is the figure that awakens his hidden inadequacy, the reminder that dominance is not the same as love, and that conquest does not equal connection. For the woman, this becomes a paradox. She may not have sought to challenge him. Perhaps she was simply whole in herself, radiant in her refusal to betray her essence. And yet her independence threatened the very foundation of his ego. To a man who has built his identity upon control, the woman who resists that control is not just a person. She becomes a mirror of his own impotence. His obsession is not with her, but with the parts of himself she forces him to see. And you, if you have ever been that woman, know the weight of it. You did not set out to be a battlefield. Yet by being untouchable, by refusing to collapse into his design, you awaken both his desire and his despair. Do you see now why he cannot forget? It is not simply attraction, it is confrontation with the void. He sees in you the archetype of freedom, and freedom terrifies the man who has lived on borrowed power. In Jungian terms, the man projects his anima, his inner feminine, onto the women he encounters. Most will comply, at least for a time, with the role he scripts for them. But when a woman refuses to serve as a canvas for his unconscious drama, she destabilizes him. She withdraws the projection, stands as herself, and he is left face to face with his own shadow. It is easier to chase her ghost endlessly than to confront the parts of himself he has buried. The Stoics spoke of this torment with different language, yet their wisdom converges here. Marcus Aurelius warned that the mind enslaved by passion loses its sovereignty. Seneca wrote that true freedom is mastery of oneself, not mastery over others. The man who obsesses over the woman he cannot control is enslaved, not by her, but by his own unmastered impulses. She becomes the symptom of his inner chains. And still, there is a cruel irony. The very independence that terrifies him also magnetizes him. The man who secretly fears insignificance is most captivated by the woman who needs nothing from him. Why? Because her detachment awakens his hunger for validation. She embodies the state he cannot reach, self-contained, radiant without permission, complete without approval. Her presence whispers the possibility of a world beyond his fragile ego, yet he cannot enter it without dismantling himself. Thus, he obsesses. He circles her memory like a moth drawn to the flame that will both illuminate and consume him. Perhaps you have felt his eyes linger long after you turned away. Perhaps his words carried a strange bitterness, a mix of admiration and resentment. Know this, such fixation has little to do with you personally. It is the ancient drama of anima and animus, of shadow and light, playing out in the theater of the psyche. You only served as the catalyst, the reminder that he cannot own what is infinite, cannot possess what is sovereign. The truth is, the obsession is not about love, but about power. Love liberates, power seeks to bind. When you refused the chains, you revealed that his version of connection was never truly love at all. That is why he obsesses, because you revealed the hollowness of what he offered. You shattered the illusion. And here lies the deeper invitation for you: never mistake his obsession for devotion. An obsession born of wounded pride is not the same as a love born of reverence. If he cannot honor your freedom, he cannot love your essence. His fixation is proof not of your flaw, but of your untamed worth. The woman who cannot be controlled becomes unforgettable, not because she played a game, but because she broke the game entirely. She is the reminder that true power is not in domination, but in self-possession. She is the dream that haunts the unhealed man, not because she withheld herself, but because she was whole unto herself. The obsession deepens in silence. For when a man loses his grip on a woman he cannot command, his mind becomes a restless chamber, echoing with the fragments of what could never be controlled. In that void, he begins to mythologize her. She is no longer flesh and blood in his memory. She becomes an archetype, a haunting presence stitched into his unconscious. He dreams of her not as she truly is, but as the embodiment of what he fears and desires most, freedom beyond his reach. This is why such women are remembered long after others fade. The ones who complied, who molded themselves into his expectations, dissolve into the background of his history. They do not stir the unconscious, because they did not defy it. But the woman who stood untouched, who remained true to her essence despite his attempts to mold her, she becomes eternal in his psyche. Jung would say she activated the archetype of the anima at its most threatening level, not as muse or comforter, but as sovereign guide, pointing toward his own shadow. And yet, he resists that journey. To confront his shadow is to dismantle the false idols he worships: pride, control, external dominance. So he does what the unhealed psyche always does. He clings to the image of the woman, replaying scenarios, rewriting what could have been, circling the wound instead of cleansing it. His obsession is the evidence of his refusal to grow. He idolizes the external figure rather than internalizing the lesson she came to deliver. You, as the woman in this drama, may feel both confusion and burden. Why does his attention persist even when you have severed the bond? Why does he resurface in silence, in memory, in sudden longing that seems to come from nowhere? Understand this: it is not you he seeks, but the fragments of himself that you awakened. He confuses his hunger for growth with hunger for you. He mistakes his desperation to reclaim power for devotion to your essence. This is where your clarity must sharpen. For many women, the temptation arises to return, to soothe, to believe that his obsession proves depth of feeling. But obsession is not depth. It is a shallow whirlpool of ego and shadow. Depth requires the courage to meet the other as whole, not as a possession. If you step back into the role of the controlled, you extinguish the very fire that made you unforgettable. Here lies the paradox Jung understood. The more a woman embodies her own sovereignty, the more she becomes both irresistible and intolerable to the man who has not integrated his shadow. He cannot decide if he wants to worship her or destroy her, to hold her close or push her away. His psyche is torn in two, desire pulling him forward, fear dragging him back. And so he obsesses, trapped between longing and terror, unable to release, unable to truly claim. The Stoics saw this same human tragedy, stripped of romantic language. Epictetus warned that what we crave most is often the very thing that enslaves us. The man who obsesses over the untouchable woman is enslaved not by her actions, but by his own chains of unexamined need. He wants her to validate what he refuses to validate within himself. He demands that she collapse into submission, so he might avoid confronting his lack of mastery. But she does not collapse, and in her refusal, she becomes his silent teacher. For you, the lesson is equally profound. You see now that your worth is not measured by who clings, who obsesses, who refuses to let go. Your worth is in your refusal to betray your essence. The obsession of a man is not a crown to wear. It is a mirror reflecting his unfinished work. The more you recognize this, the more you step into your true power, the freedom to remain untouched by the storms of another's ego. Some men will transform through this confrontation. They will take the mirror you hold up to them and finally face their own shadow. They will allow the obsession to die so that love, real love, may be born. But others will never cross that threshold. They will wander their lives haunted by the memory of the one who could not be broken, turning her into both muse and ghost. Their torment is not yours to carry. So understand this truth: if he obsesses, it is not because you lacked, but because you revealed. You revealed the limits of control, the illusion of power, the hunger of a soul unfulfilled. You showed him the edge of his own being, and he could not step across it. And here is where the subtle, unspoken dynamics of attraction and power intertwine with the deepest layers of the psyche. The man who obsesses over the untouchable woman is often blind to the simple truth: it is not she who binds him, but the parts of himself he refuses to face. His fixation is a shadow drama playing out in real time, a relentless confrontation with what Jung called the unknown self. Every glance he casts, every memory he replays, every fantasy he entertains is a rehearsal of his struggle to integrate the parts of his being he keeps buried. You, standing apart, remain a living emblem of individuation, the process Jung described as becoming fully oneself, whole and conscious. While he spins in circles of longing and confusion, you inhabit a reality untouched by his obsession. Your freedom, your self-possession, your refusal to be assimilated into his ego, these are the qualities that he cannot comprehend fully. He wants the thrill of control but lacks the courage to surrender his shadow. In your independence, he sees both possibility and peril, fascination and fear. It is no coincidence that he remembers the woman who could not be owned with such intensity. Memory in his case is not passive, it is active, a psychological echo chamber. Every attempt he makes to rewrite history, to imagine what could have been, is a testament to his inability to reconcile desire with respect, need with acceptance. He does not chase her because of what she did for him, but because of what she revealed in him, the insufficiency of his self-mastery. And this is where the psychological poetry of his obsession becomes painfully clear. He yearns not merely for her affection, but for her validation, a validation he cannot provide for himself. He projects onto her the qualities he seeks to cultivate within his own spirit: strength, autonomy, authenticity. Yet when these qualities are real and autonomous, they escape his grasp, and in escaping, they haunt him. The obsession becomes a mirror, reflecting both his longing and his fear, magnified and distorted by the mind that cannot yet face the truth. You may notice the duality in his behavior, a push and pull that seems irrational, almost theatrical. At one moment, he exalts her, elevates her to near-mythical status. At the next, he recoils, frustrated by her refusal to conform to his desires. This oscillation is the hallmark of a man confronting his own shadow without guidance or courage. The more he attempts to possess her, the more he encounters his limitations. The more he is confronted with her freedom, the more he obsesses. Yet there is a hidden wisdom in this dynamic. For the woman who refuses to be controlled, who moves through life with integrity and self-possession, the obsession is a signpost. It is evidence that she is aligned with the deepest principles of psychological truth, that no one can complete her, define her, or diminish her unless she allows it. Every glance that lingers, every thought that returns, is a confirmation of the power inherent in self-mastery, a power that no man can take away. And here lies the subtle transformative irony. The more he struggles to control, the more potent her presence becomes in the unconscious theater of his mind. She is a ghost that cannot be exorcised, a symbol of freedom he both desires and fears. In this way, his obsession paradoxically amplifies her power, while simultaneously exposing the immaturity of his own spirit. The one he cannot control is the very one who illuminates the path he refuses to walk, the path towards self-awareness, humility, and emotional sovereignty. It is important, then, for you to see the obsession not as a reflection of your value in his eyes, but as an artifact of his incompleteness. To let it define you would be to hand over the sovereignty you have fought so hard to claim. The untouchable woman becomes unforgettable not by chasing, not by yielding, not by softening herself to fit his ego, but by standing unyielding in the truth of her being. She is a testament to what it means to be whole, to honor herself above all, to resist the illusions of external validation. So the man's obsession, intense and unrelenting as it may be, is not a measure of love. It is a measure of confrontation. Confrontation with the truth he cannot yet face, a mirror held up by the woman who will not break. He obsesses because he cannot possess her autonomy, cannot quell the light she radiates, cannot escape the reflection of his own unfinished self. And in that obsession lies a lesson, that power, control, and possession are illusions when placed outside the self. Freedom, integrity, and self-possession are the only realities worth guarding. There comes a point in this drama where the obsession transforms into a silent reckoning. The man, caught between desire and inadequacy, begins to realize that what he chases is never truly the woman, but the mirror she holds up to his soul. She reflects his fragmented self back to him with unflinching clarity, revealing the ego's brittle structure, the shadow's unintegrated impulses, the immaturity that his pride refuses to admit. Every memory of her, every imagined encounter, becomes a meditation on what he lacks, a reminder that true power cannot be wrested from another. You, as the untouchable woman, exist in a different reality. You have already passed through the threshold he fears. You know that autonomy is not merely a stance but a state of being. Your presence in his life, though perhaps brief, perhaps unintentional, acts as a fulcrum upon which his psyche tilts uncomfortably. It is not aggression you provoke, but reflection. It is not conquest you inspire, but confrontation. And this is precisely what makes you unforgettable. Observe the pattern. He romanticizes you, mythologizes you, sometimes even demonizes you. He cannot let go because letting go would force him to face what he avoided for so long, the recognition that he cannot create within himself what you embody effortlessly. He obsesses because the alternative, introspection, self-examination, humility, requires a surrender he is not prepared to offer. And in that obsession, his admiration is inseparable from his resentment. He sees what is possible and simultaneously fears it, envies what he cannot claim, and clings to illusions of control to soothe the terror of inadequacy. In these dynamics, Jung's archetypes are alive. The untouchable woman invokes the queen, the wise woman, the sovereign feminine. She is not a muse to be possessed, but a force to be acknowledged. Her power lies not in compliance, but in integrity, not in yielding, but in wholeness. The man who cannot hold her physically or psychologically projects onto her a fantasy that is part admiration, part punishment, part longing. His obsession is less about her behavior than about the truths she cannot help but reveal. This is why some men will circle her endlessly, even after separation. They send messages, appear in unexpected places, or replay her image in the theater of their imagination. All of it is a subconscious attempt to reconcile what cannot be controlled: her independence, her self-respect, the very thing they secretly crave but do not possess. And yet, no amount of chasing will satisfy this need, for it is not external, it is internal. Until he meets his shadow, he will remain tethered to her memory, oscillating between desire and despair. For the woman observing this, clarity is essential. Do not mistake his fixation for validation. It is a reflection of what he cannot master, not of your worth. You are not responsible for healing his incompleteness, nor for bending your essence to soothe his pride. Every attempt to satisfy his obsession risks diluting the very integrity that made you unforgettable. Freedom, once surrendered, is rarely regained. Authenticity, once compromised, loses its radiance. Yet, within this tension lies an invitation for empowerment. To witness obsession without yielding is to cultivate sovereignty. To recognize that the fixation is about him, not you, is to reclaim your narrative. Each attempt he makes to draw you back, each unspoken thought he harbors, is proof that your autonomy is magnetic, untouchable, and consequential. You learn that the truest form of influence is not through compliance, but through presence, a presence grounded in self-possession, clarity, and the refusal to be diminished. Psychologically, this is transformative. The untouchable woman experiences no fear in the face of obsession, only awareness. She sees the patterns for what they are, observes the drama without attachment, and allows the universe to unfold around her with equanimity. Her power is quiet, relentless, and eternal, for it is rooted in the truth of her being, not in the reactions of others. She becomes a living example of what it means to be complete, unbending, and whole. And this is why the man cannot forget her. Not because she bends to desire, not because she fulfills ego, but because she embodies what he cannot fabricate: self-possession, integrity, freedom. She is the shadow that cannot be swallowed, the light that cannot be dimmed, the truth that refuses compromise. His obsession is merely the echo of what he fears and secretly longs for, a testament to the power of a woman who cannot be controlled. As the cycles of obsession persist, a deeper truth emerges, one that transcends the surface drama of desire and control. The man's fixation is a silent admission. He recognizes, consciously or not, the enormity of the woman's inner landscape, the vastness of her autonomy. She is not merely a presence. She is an event in his psyche, a force that unsettles the familiar architecture of his ego. Every attempt to possess her collapses because she is not constructed for possession. She moves through the world fully realized, her essence untethered, her value self-contained, and in that self-containment lies the terror he cannot name. For her, this revelation is liberating. To witness obsession without attachment is to witness the shadow play of another's psyche without being ensnared by it. She sees the ways in which projection distorts reality, how unhealed men convert longing into fixation, how control masquerades as love. Her discernment is her armor, her clarity, her sword. She does not chase, she does not plead, she does not temper herself to fit the contours of another's fear. Her power is invisible yet palpable, a quiet sovereignty that commands the mind even when it is resisted. Jung would describe her as a catalyst of individuation, not for herself, but for him. By simply being whole, she forces the man to confront the incomplete fragments of his own psyche. He obsesses because he cannot escape the truth she embodies. That completeness, autonomy, and self-respect are not things to be won or imposed upon, but cultivated within. In every lingering thought, every fantasy, every imagined reunion, he is rehearsing a confrontation with the parts of himself that remain shadowed, unloved, and unintegrated. This is why obsession often feels paradoxical. The man admires her, even reveres her, while simultaneously resenting her for the freedom he cannot claim. He oscillates between idealization and irritation, desire and resentment, fantasy and reality. His mind becomes a labyrinth, with her at the center, not as a victim but as a mirror. She reflects the limitations of his ego, the fractures of his identity, and the unrealized potential of his heart. The obsession is a psychological response to her wholeness, a relentless reminder of the gap between his self-image and his actual state of being. And you, as the woman, are neither responsible nor diminished by this. To recognize the mechanics of obsession is to free yourself from its pull. You see that his fixation is not an homage to you, but an indictment of his own incompletion. It is a drama of projection, a testament to the human tendency to externalize inner conflict. Your role is not to resolve it, but to observe it, to stand firm in the sovereignty that provokes it, and to allow it to unfold without compromising your essence. There is a quiet justice in this arrangement. The man who cannot let go is bound by his own psyche, imprisoned by longing he cannot resolve. The woman who cannot be controlled is liberated, untouchable, her energy unconsumed by the struggles of another. Her power is regenerative, radiant, and impervious to manipulation. She teaches without intention, illuminates without demand, and stands as proof that true autonomy is both magnetic and untouchable. Some men may eventually awaken, facing the shadows she illuminated, integrating what they had long resisted, and stepping into a version of themselves capable of genuine respect and love. But others will linger in the shadow of her independence, haunted by what they cannot possess, forever circling the memory of a woman who refused to compromise her integrity. In either case, her influence endures, not through conquest or control, but through the unyielding truth of her being. This is the lesson, the revelation, the psychological truth that courses beneath the surface of obsession. The untouchable woman is unforgettable not because she played a game, but because she embodies what cannot be taken, only witnessed. She is the shadow and the light, the mirror and the guide, the challenge and the triumph. And in witnessing her, the man confronts the limits of his own ego, the hunger of his unmastered desires, and the vast, terrifying beauty of freedom he has yet to claim. And in the stillness that follows, a final clarity emerges, a truth that cannot be contested, only embraced. The obsession that once felt like a storm raging outside your door is nothing more than a reflection of what the man has never faced within himself. He chases not you, but the possibility of becoming someone who could meet you on equal ground, a being capable of integrity, humility, and authentic connection. Yet until he undertakes that internal work, the chase is endless, and his fixation is eternal. For the woman who cannot be controlled, this revelation is liberation. She no longer measures her worth by the intensity of his gaze or the persistence of his longing. She understands that what cannot be taken by force, manipulation, or ego-driven desire is precisely what sustains her power. Her presence in the world is a testament to sovereignty, a living proof that self-possession outshines obsession, and that autonomy is a beacon no external fixation can extinguish. There is poetry in her detachment. In every step she takes away from the need to be validated, in every breath she claims as solely hers, she reshapes the narrative of desire. No longer a mere object of pursuit, she becomes the embodiment of an archetype that Jung would recognize as both transformative and terrifying. The queen, the wise woman, the sovereign feminine, untouched by the illusions of control. Her power is not in how much attention she draws, but in how fully she lives her truth without apology. And the man? He is left to navigate the labyrinth of his own psyche. He may wrestle with his longing, replay her presence, or attempt to reclaim what was never his to command. Each obsession is a mirror of unmastered shadow, a reflection of unrealized potential, a silent indictment of the ego that cannot bear freedom in another. He cannot possess her, not because she withholds, but because she cannot be owned, a subtle distinction that eludes most until it strikes with unmistakable clarity. This is why some women are unforgettable. Not because they provoke drama or seek attention, but because they exist fully, unshakable in their essence, radiating an unassailable integrity. The obsession they evoke is a natural consequence of encountering a spirit so complete that it refuses to bend, and of confronting a man so incomplete that he cannot reconcile his desire with respect, his longing with humility, his need with admiration. For you, the lesson crystallizes. Obsession is not evidence of love, but of confrontation with what is unmastered. You are not responsible for his integration, nor for soothing the turbulence he cannot resolve. Your task is to honor your sovereignty, to inhabit your freedom, and to allow the consequences of your authenticity to unfold naturally. In this way, the drama of obsession becomes not a burden, but a testament to the power of being wholly yourself. In time, as all shadows eventually confront light, he may awaken. He may see clearly the woman he cannot control not as a prize to be won, but as a mirror of his own incompletion. He may learn to navigate the internal landscape that obsession has revealed, embracing responsibility for his shadow, cultivating integrity, and stepping toward a version of himself capable of true connection. But whether he does or not, your power remains untouched. Your freedom remains absolute. The untouchable woman is, in essence, a living monument to the truth Jung articulated so profoundly, that autonomy, integrity, and self-possession are the highest forms of influence. She does not chase. She does not negotiate her essence for the approval of others. She moves through the world with clarity, strength, and quiet authority. And the men who cannot possess her, who obsess in their inability to control her, are simply witnesses to the power she always held. And so it culminates. The man may linger in memory, haunted by the echo of her freedom, but she is already beyond the reach of obsession, already aligned with the truth of her being. The lesson is clear, the liberation complete, the final understanding unassailable. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.